In this video, we're going to use setting up a place value chart in order to help us compare and order numbers from large numbers that are whole numbers into decimals all the way to the thousandths place. So you can see we're starting with a notebook piece of paper. In order to really use our notebook piece of paper effectively, helping us really line up those places, I strongly recommend you turn your paper to a horizontal position. So this video is about place value and comparing and ordering numbers. So let's set our place value chart up from the largest place we're going to go in 5th grade to the smallest place we're going to go in 5th grade. So if we started with the largest place we were going in 5th grade, we would start way over here. So we're going to go 100, 10, 1. And the largest period that we're going to be using is going to be our billions period. But notice 10, 110 ones will be repeated. It's a pattern. So this is our billions period. Then we have the 100, 10, 1 again. And that is going to be our millions period. And I bet you can guess what's coming next. And you're right, 100, 10, 1. And that is our thousands period. Finishing off our whole numbers with our 100, 10, and 1. And these are our units period. So after the units period, we have a decimal point. When we're reading a whole number, we start with the largest place, and when you get to the comma, you say the last name of the place. So let's use, for example, if we put a 702 right there, that would read 702 billion, comma. I'm going to add 3 more digits to this number. Ends that period, so I put in a comma. So I have 356 million. Add 3 more digits to this number. 478,000. Ending with 320. Now we get to a decimal point. I don't say a last name here because there's no comma. However, for the decimal point, I will say the word and. This is the only time you say and in a number. So with the whole number, I never use the word and. And in a number with a decimal, you only say the and when you're connecting your whole and your parts. So now we're going to add, if I take a whole number and I break it apart, I start with my tenths. Then I break it into smaller pieces into my hundredths, and following to the smallest pieces of thousandths. And now I go ahead and put in some digits there. Let's go 456 thousandths. Now, how can this help us compare numbers? Well, first of all, it's really going to help you line up your numbers. So let's say you can tell that's a very big number. So let's give another really large number, a ton of digits. I'm going to fill it in. At home, I'd like you to read it out loud as I'm writing it. So let's see if you read it correctly. 702,536,478,000 235, and 629. Now, if we were comparing these numbers, we have two options. We can compare 3 digits at a time and make it go really fast. So I start with my largest period. So this largest period, I have 702, 702. So my billions places are equal. So that means I have to move to my next period. In my next period, I have 356 million and 536 million. Well, let's isolate the place that we're actually using. The place I'm actually going to use to compare this number is my 100 millions place. Because 300 is less than 500, I know that 702,356,478,320 and 456 thousandths is less than 702,536,478,235 and 629 thousandths, because 300 million is less than 500 million. Okay, so now we've compared those two numbers. Let's add one more number, because the difference between comparing and ordering is simply whether you have two numbers or you have more than two numbers. So if you have 3 or greater numbers, you're now ordering the numbers instead of comparing them. So let me give you another one. Let's see if you can spot the place that it changes. Right now, you should be asking yourself, is she going to make two equal numbers? Well, keep watching. Right now, you have a pretty strong prediction. Hopefully, right there at the end, you said, nope, she's not. They're not equal numbers. They have the same whole numbers, but the parts change. So you can also, when you set it up in a place value chart, you can also simply move across comparing one place at a time. But it's really important, if you're doing this, that you have lined up your numbers. So far, it's right here. We see it's larger than the 300 million, but equal to the 500 million. Equal, equal. 4s, 7s, 8s, 2s, 3s, 5s, decimal points. 6 and a 4. 6 and 4 are not equal. So when comparing these two numbers, we're comparing them in the tenths place. And 4/10 is less than 6/10. So this right here is my greatest number. My second greatest number, because they both have the 5s, but 6/10 was more than 4/10. And then the smallest number here, because 300 million is less than the 500 million. Let's take another number. I'd like to look at some common misperceptions. Where do people that say, hey, that part was easy, I got that, Miss Schultz, now what? Well, let's take a look at a number like that. Here's 534 and 29 hundredths, 534 and 6/10, 534 and 129 thousandths. Now, initially, everybody should be able to go ahead and say, hey, check that out. My whole numbers are all the same. I'm not really going to have to compare there because so far they're equal. But when I come over here, I can see this is not equal. Now, those that want to rush through problems will often not make them pretty. Therefore, their results will often not be pretty. So my encouragement at this point is that I would like you to put in those zeros that make it pretty. If you want to put them in as dotted zeros, I'm okay with that. Sometimes that helps you see them as they might not have been there, but I'm adding them so that I can compare my values. So now, instead of comparing 6 to 29, we're comparing 600 thousandths to 290 thousandths. Instead of comparing 9 to 129, we're comparing 290 to 129. Because if we're going to compare them, we're not going to compare apples and oranges. We're not comparing tenths to thousandths. We want to make them all thousandths. So now when I look at this number, I'm going to write it as a statement where I have 534 and 129 thousandths is less than 534 and 290 thousandths. Again, we don't need that zero. We can say 534 and 129 thousandths is less than 534 and 29 hundredths, which is less than 534 and 6/10. Now we can compare them because we've looked at them as all the same, writing them down here in more of a simplified form. I hope this lesson has helped you. Feel free to print out the notes.